Welcome to Real Talk Live with Melissa. I am Melissa Miller, and today we are going to get right into the conversation with our distinguished guests. Here on Real Talk, we are all about bringing information that is important, and by popular demand, we have received so many requests to dig into this topic about property taxes, and we're going to be covering many of the frequently asked questions about homestead, about portability, how you can take those tax benefits with you to a new home. And very importantly, today, we are also going to be discussing tax fraud and how you can
Yes.
protect yourself from
Mhm.
becoming a victim. As
Yes.
always, on Real Talk, we want to encourage you to add your questions to the chat so we can answer your questions live today at the end of our session. I am happy to introduce Marty Kiar. He currently serves as the elected Broward County property appraiser. As a lifelong resident of Broward, Marty went to school in Broward and attended Nova Southeastern Law School. Yay for Nova! Marty served
Love
in the
Nova.
Florida House of Representatives and on the Broward County Commission before being elected as property appraiser in 2016. Marty is married to his beautiful wife, Kelly, and they have two
Yes.
daughters, Brienne and Cami, as well as three
Yep.
cats, Rocky,
We do.
Maggie, and Toby. Thank you so much, Marty,
Yes.
for being on our broadcast today.
Oh, and thank you so much, Melissa, for having me. I have been looking forward to this like crazy. As we spoke about before, there's so much that our office can do to help people, but sometimes the difficulty is reaching everybody. And when really awesome people like you invite me on to talk about how our office can work with the community, it just gives me the opportunity to make that much more of a difference. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty, again. So let's just get right into it. So we want to make
Sure.
sure we maximize the time today. So
Yes.
let's start with your role as the property county property
Mhm.
appraiser. What are your
Sure.
responsibilities? What does your role involve? And just tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about your department.
I will, and thank you so much for that. And just for everybody that's watching, I want to thank them so much for allowing me to be their property appraiser. And just to let them know, I've had the great privilege of serving in a lot of capacities. I got to serve in the Florida House of Representatives, on the county commission, as the mayor of the county, and now as our property appraiser. And I can definitely tell you, out of all the jobs I've ever had, this one I love the most by far. So I love the most by far because you get to interact with everybody in the county and you get to help people. Let me just explain why. When I was in the legislature, it was great. You got to debate big issues, whether it was education or healthcare, and you got to try to make the state better. But you were so far away from the people, you really didn't get to meet the people you were helping. The county commission is a great job. I mean, Broward County is bigger than 13 states, the District of Columbia, and all U.S. territories except Puerto Rico. And when you serve on the county commissioner as the mayor of the county, you get to make the port better and the airport better and mass transit better. And then you get to help make Broward County an economic powerhouse. But you're still so far away from the people, you don't get to meet the people you're helping. Property appraiser is the greatest job alive because all day, every day, you're doing constituent services. You help people with their property, you help seniors and veterans. It's the type of job that when you go home and you put your head on your pillow, you feel like you did something good that day. And that's why I'm so appreciative that you and the 2 million residents of Broward County allow me to do it. And there are a few main functions to our office. The first function is we determine the value of every piece of property in Broward County for tax purposes, whether it's residential, commercial, tangible personal property, or centrally assessed property, which are railroads. And the reason that's important is because when anybody pays their property taxes, the amount of taxes they pay is a relationship between the value of the property that we set and the tax rate set by your local governments. So the higher the value of the property, the more taxes people pay. The lower the value of the property, the lower amount of taxes they pay. And the most important thing we want to do is make sure we get it right. And I know as we're going to talk about, we can talk about how people can contact us, how we can review their property, and hopefully how we can bring down their assessed value to reduce their taxes. We also give tax saving exemptions, and that's the thing I love most about my job. The most important one by far, and I know we'll talk about, is homestead exemption. If anybody lives here in Broward County, it's their primary residence. They get that very important exemption. Once you get that, you can get a senior exemption potentially. You can get veterans exemptions. Some are large, some are small, and you can stack the exemptions to reduce your tax bill. And if any resident out there is not getting a tax saving exemption they're entitled to, call me by September 18th. We'll make sure you get it. And finally, of course, the last thing I know we're going to talk about it is we work very hard to, one, ensure that people can't commit homestead fraud, but also to make sure that people can't criminally steal other people's properties. And we also have a law enforcement team in our office that has been arresting people and putting people in jail that have been doing that. That is in a nutshell what we do for the people of
What
our
we're going to be
county.
talking about today, and that's amazing that we're going to be able to really dig into that because it affects so many people. So to
Yes,
hear from you exactly what we can do to avoid that is going to
yes,
be very important today.
definitely.
So let's
Oh,
dig a little
thank
deeper
you.
into the homestead. You mentioned that
Yes.
primary residents are the ones that can,
Mhm.
if it's your primary residence, that allows you to qualify. Can you talk a little bit more about how it's calculated,
Sure.
maybe, and what other
Mhm.
discounts people can get, taxpayers can get?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So the homestead exemption is, and so well, first for everybody listening, all exemptions are in the Florida Constitution. So the only way to get a property tax exemption is it has to have been put on the ballot by the legislature, and the people had to have put it in the Constitution in one of our previous elections. And the most important one by far is the homestead exemption. Basically, if somebody lives here in Broward County and they have no exemptions anywhere else, and what they want to do is they want to file homestead in their property if they lived on that property on January 1st, if it's where they're registered to vote, if they don't vote, where their declaration of domiciled, if it's where their car is registered to, if that's their primary residence where they raise their family, they're entitled to a very important exemption called the homestead exemption. And it does two things. The first thing it does, it takes $50,000 of value off the tax roll you no longer pay taxes on. It can save you 500, 600, 800, maybe $1,000 a year, depending on your local millage rates. But most importantly, it really protects you going forward because every year after you have a homestead exemption, the value you're taxing cannot go more than a maximum of 3%. And that is so very important right now because as we spoke about before, Melissa, people are coming from all over the world. They're spending top dollar for properties. So the market values for everybody's property is skyrocketing based on those sales. But if you have a homestead exemption, even if your market value skyrockets, your assessed value is capped at 3%. It keeps your property taxes manageable so they won't skyrocket with your market value. So if there's anybody out there that lived on their home on January 1st of this year, please contact me by September 18th. We can make sure that you get that very important exemption so you'll be protected from drastic rate increases. Also, there are many other exemptions as well. One that I love, and may I talk about a couple of them? Is that okay,
Yes, of
Melissa?
course.
Uh,
Yes.
oh, great.
That would be
My
great.
favorite one by far is called the low income senior exemption. And I'll tell you why. Broward County has 2 million people that live here. And it's my understanding that about a third of our population are seniors. And unfortunately, on average, the most impoverished portion of our population are also seniors. And I always think if you can help a senior who's struggling to make ends meet, put a little bit more money in their pocket, they can have a little better of a life. So if you know anybody out there that is over 65 years of age as of January 1st of 2023, they made it under last year right about 35,000 bucks. If they don't file income taxes, Social Security doesn't count. If they do, they look at the adjusted gross income tax line of their income tax statement. If it is under that number, they basically get another homestead exemption on top of the one they currently get. It could save them another $400 or $500 a year in their taxes. There are so many other exemptions. Some are very, very large, some are very, very small, and you can reduce these exemptions to reduce your tax bill. An example of a very large one would be for a totally permanently disabled American hero veteran who became 100% disabled while serving us and service connected. That individual, that American hero, pays no property taxes whatsoever, and they've earned that under the Constitution. If somebody's a combat disabled veteran, but not 100% disabled, they could still get a very large reduction because that combat disabled veteran would get a percentage reduction in their taxes that correlates to whatever their disability percentage is. It could be 70, 80, 90%. And if you're not 100%, but you're not combat disabled, but you're still a disabled veteran, you can get in a service connected, you can get a big reduction in your taxes. There are exemptions for widows, which is actually increasing this year. So you get a
Oh,
bigger savings in your tax bill if you're a widow. For people who are visually impaired, there's lots of them. So please, everybody out there, go on our website at bcpa.net, click on exemptions. And if there's something you're not getting, call me, email me by September 18th of this year, and we'll make sure they're reflected in your tax bill. So your tax bill will go down and you won't pay too much. You only pay your fair share.
so let me ask you, because I've been on the website and I know that there's a calculator
Yes.
on there. How accurate is that compared to what they actually get in their bill?
So it's very, you mean for first time home buyers?
Yes,
Is
well,
that what you mean?
anyone
Or
that
you
goes
mean,
on there,
yes,
because I know that, we've had
yes,
clients go on to the
mhm,
site and we refer them to that Homestead calculator.
yes,
and they can put in their
It's
different exemptions
yes.
and they get an amount
Mhm.
there. So just
Yes.
curious, like, is that pretty accurate when they see
It's
that number?
It's very accurate. But first, I just want to thank you so much for sending clients there. And I'll tell
Yes.
you why, and you know why it's so, so very important. The first year that somebody buys the property of somebody else, generally they pay whatever the tax bill was going to be of that person they bought the property for.
Mhm.
Because January 1st is the date under the law that we have to determine the value of property for tax purposes. So when the November tax bill comes out, is what was the property on January 1st? So if somebody bought the property in February, or let's say they bought the property in June, their tax bill is going to reflect whatever the property looked like on January 1st. So usually they'll buy it from somebody that was homesteaded. Maybe they were there for a long time. And so there's probably a lot of value they don't pay taxes on. So that first November, their taxes are probably going to be pretty good. But
Right.
then what occurs is January 1st of the next year, it gets reset to market value based on the purchase price if it's an arm's length transaction. And
Right.
then generally that value goes way up, which makes the taxes go up. So the fact that you send people there, Melissa, I appreciate that so much because it
Yes.
is very, very accurate. It lets people know, okay, I can afford this property, or maybe I can't afford this property. It really puts them on notice as what's going to happen so they can prepare to be able to pay usually what's going to be a much greater tax bill. And when
Yes.
you go on there, it's very accurate. The only thing that nobody would know as of yet is it uses the current millage rates from our
Okay.
local governments. And of course, those could change if they raise them or decrease them, but not by much. But it'll give you a very, very accurate idea of what your taxes will be.
And I'm glad you brought that up because many of the clients, they do look at the previous owner's taxes and it can look very,
Yes,
very low. I mean, there's some people that have been in
yes,
their homes for 20 something years and the taxes are only a thousand
yes,
dollars. And then when they get their
yes,
tax bill the next year, they're in shock. So we try to make sure that they know,
yes,
don't rely on that previous owner's taxes as being what you're
yes,
going to pay. Almost
yes.
certainly it's going to go up the following year. So make sure you get your, and even worse if you don't apply for your homestead. So that's a
Yes,
good point. So
it's
let's,
very true.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
Make your point.
thank you, Melissa. I would say
Yes.
right now we just sent out the trim notices are going out all throughout Broward County, the proposed tax bills. And
Mhm.
right now our office is getting many, many calls from first-time home buyers who have owned their home for a year now, who and many of them didn't know that was going to happen. And
Mhm.
we really work hard to try to let people know. We try to drive them
Yeah.
to our website. We send them information on it. But still, when somebody buys a property, especially if they're young,
Yeah.
they're just excited about buying that property, and
Yeah.
they're like, "This is going to be a great place to live." And so now they're calling, and it is very difficult to help them because generally the value of their tax is going to be their purchase price. And so, thank you so much for sending people there. That's awesome, Melissa. I appreciate that
I
immensely.
think it's very important because, I mean, we're talking about people's mortgage payments increasing,
Yes. Oh yeah.
substantially, and you have to be ready for that.
Yes.
If it's not,
Mhm.
budget friendly, it could run you into
Yes.
some serious financial
Thousands.
difficulties. So,
Oh yes.
making that check up front, I'm glad to hear that it's very accurate so that people can
Yes.
budget for that. Now, let's talk a little bit
Yes.
about portability, which I think is so
Sure.
exciting. When did that come into
Yes.
place initially? Do you remember?
That is, I do. That is such a great question. So, I served at one point in the legislature,
Mhm.
and I was actually elected in 2006. And if you remember, that's also when they had a crash.
Yes.
Where the entire housing market, went bust. It was very, very bad. I remember I bought a home in 2005,
Mhm.
little townhouse in Davie, for I think about 360,000, which was a lot of money for that at that time. It was a lot of money for me, and then a year later, it dropped to about 70,000. It was a big crash. And so what happened was the realtor associations for Florida, the Florida realtors and our local associations came to Tallahassee and they educated Governor Chris at the time and all 120 House members, I was one of them, and all 40 senators about how we could work to fix what was at the time a crumbling real estate market. And one thing that they came up with is portability. And I remember very specifically because the realtors are smart. What they do is they actually send your constituents into you in Tallahassee to talk to you about it. So I had at the time, probably about 15 realtors from Broward County telling me, Marty, this is what portability is. And I remember them walking in and I go, well, what's portability? And they explained it to me and we put it on the ballot and then the people voted for it. And it's been in effect now, I believe, since about 2008. I think that was the election that was put on the ballot. And here's the way it works. Portability is fantastic. It gives people the opportunity to move from one home and then to another home and not be taxed into that home. And here's the way it works. When somebody bought their home, again, they filed for Homestead. Remember, that's a very important exemption. It does a lot of things for you. And when they did that, a very important clause of the Florida Constitution kicked into place called the Save Our Homes Assessment Cap that basically said that every year thereafter, the value you're taxing could not go up more than a maximum of 3%. Right. So over time, your market value gets high or your assessed value stays capped and you have all this value in between you don't pay taxes on. If somebody now buys a home of equal value or greater value anywhere else in the state of Florida, they take whatever difference that is with them between their market and their assessed value with them and not pay taxes on it. If they buy a home of lower value, they take a percentage of it and they can actually save thousands of dollars a year in their property taxes. And the key is you can use it anywhere in Florida, but you can only have one homestead per family unit, and a family unit's a married couple. You have to use it in 3 tax years. And a tax year for our purpose starts on January 1st. Right now it is August. It's August. It's August.
Yes.
And so I'm losing track of my time. And if somebody sold their house today, they would relinquish their homestead. They would only have 2 years and 2 months to establish their new homestead to be able to bring portability in. And may I just give a real world example where it helps people, somebody move the maximum?
That would be helpful.
Thank you. So the maximum amount you can move is $500 of value. That's if you've accumulated that, you can move that to a new home and not pay taxes on it if you buy a home of equal or greater value. Again, if you buy a home of lower value, take a percentage of it. But there was a couple that moved into the city of Weston in Weston Hills when Weston Hills was built. And Weston Hills is a little bit more of an expensive community in Weston. But a few decades ago, average people like myself could afford it. I couldn't now, but at that time I could. So this couple moved into Weston Hills when it was built. And maybe they paid $300,000 or $250,000 at the time for their home. And then what they did was they filed for Homestead. Fast forward about 2 decades, their kids went to Cypress Bay High School and the University of Florida. And all of a sudden you had a husband and a wife that were empty nesters in this big house on the golf course in Weston Hills. And all they wanted to do was move to downtown Fort Lauderdale to Las Olas to enjoy everything that Las Olas had to offer. But they were very afraid they couldn't afford the property taxes. So we looked at their property and the market value of their Weston Hills home at the time was right about $900,000. But their assessed value was about $400,000 because of that cap. So they had the full $500,000 of value they weren't paying taxes on. What they did was they sold their home in Weston Hills. They then bought a condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale for about $900,000. We were able to move the full $500,000 of value from their West home to their condo in Fort Lauderdale, which dropped that assessed value to $400,000, which basically meant that their taxes in Fort Lauderdale were very similar to what they were in Weston. It gave them the opportunity to move. And what's fantastic about portability is, remember, it's not just a 1-year savings. I mean, imagine if you can save $10,000 a year in your property taxes like they did. That's not just your first year, that's every year thereafter. I mean, that really, really, really can help people a lot. So portability is a great thing. When I moved from the town of Davie to from my townhouse to my home in Plantation, I had, this is 2016, I had about, I think, $70,000 of value I wasn't paying taxes on. I was able to move that over, and that really helped me in my budget to be able to afford my home. So portability is a great thing. And also, just like on our website, how we have the tax estimator, we also, of course, have the portability estimator. So if anybody goes on there and they know what their prospective purchase price is, they'll be able to see roughly based on this year's millage rates, what their tax would be with portability and without portability. I hope that explains it.
So that's an amazing program. And I think that there's so many people that don't know about it. So tell me, if somebody already moved and they did not request, because I know you have a form on your website that they should complete. So let's say they bought the home and they did not sign up for it before. Are they able to do that now, or do they have to wait for a period of time to be able to do it?
That is a fantastic question. So the few things that'll happen. So first, there's a form on our website, but also when somebody files for Homestead, we let them know about it. We give them the application, and every new homeowner will get a packet from our office that also includes that as well. But portability is interesting. Now, the most important thing is that you just move to your new homestead, at least now within 3 tax years. A few years ago, it was at 2 tax years, but it was increased. But here's the thing, if you move timely under the law, you can go back 10 years. As let's say you moved within 2 tax years 10 years ago, because you moved timely, we could actually now apply portability back to you to where it can help you go forward. So that's the key, just moving timely under the to your new homestead. And so what will occur is, let's say somebody right now has not filed for portability, and let's say they've been in their home for a few years. You can actually file in my office right now by September 18th, and we'll take the value that you weren't paying tax on from your previous home, and we'll bring it over to your new home, and it'll drop your assessed value that much more. Please do it. You can do it by September 18th, and that potentially could save you many thousands of dollars a year in your taxes.
And with insurance, I keep getting so many calls
Oh,
of
yes.
people, their insurances are rising. This is like a
Yes.
great opportunity to cut somewhere else in your budget to be able to
Yes.
afford, like, the insurance is just astronomical.
You,
So yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you are so right, Melissa. Insurance is out of control. And
yes.
I mean, even myself, I think 2 years ago, I was at the St. David's Carnival with my kids, and I got a call from my insurance agent. Said, Marty, I'm really sorry to let you know this, but your insurance company went bankrupt. You may not have insurance, and we can't get you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I was able to get insurance, but I think my premium is about $5,000 more a year than it was before, which was a lot of money for me. That's happening to everybody. You
Yeah.
couple that with inflation, just with the cost of living in South Florida, it's a lot. And so if there's a way people could actually cut down those costs a little bit through their property taxes, that's a great thing. So I hope everybody takes advantage of
That's
portability if they
amazing. I
haven't.
hope everybody out there is hearing this. You could be
Yes.
in your home right
Mhm.
now and actually be able to qualify for this. So it's not automatic.
Yes.
It's something that you have to complete the form that is on
Yes.
bcpa.net. Check it out.
Yes.
You can get more information on there. I mean, Marty, you covered it really well, really, really
Thank
well.
you.
And so
Oh,
that
thank you.
calculator is also going to be helpful for you guys to just know
Yes.
right now how much you could possibly qualify for. So that's huge, and I'm glad we were able
Absolutely.
to talk about that a little bit. So it's not good out of state.
Definitely.
If you're leaving us in Florida, you
Yes.
can't get
Mhm.
it, right? Is there
Yes.
any other state doing
Ab-
it?
well, so I'm not quite sure if there are other states that have portability if you live in that state, but for at least to qualify for portability in Florida, for our portability, you have to live in Florida. Truthfully, I have no idea why anybody would want to leave
When it,
Florida because we live in the
right.
greatest place on the face of the earth. But the neat thing about it, you can go anywhere in Florida. I mean, you can go from Broward to Broward, Broward to Miami-Dade, Miami-Dade to the Panhandle, to the Keys, back to Broward. As long as you just transfer your homestead exemption, you can do it, but you can't leave Florida and take advantage at least of the portability value that we have. I'm not sure whether or not there are other states that have a similar type of
Affordability. Well,
program.
they don't need to know that anyways.
Yes,
They just
absolutely,
and there's a
absolutely.
couple people in the comments saying that they don't understand why anybody would leave either. Matthew is
Yes,
saying this is a great opportunity, the portability. And so we have some viewers here that are chiming in. I encourage you to put
great.
your questions in the chat so that we're
Yes,
about to cover questions live here. So now we're going to go
wonderful.
into information about tax fraud. What is
Yes.
happening right now with
Mhm.
tax fraud? You mentioned the sheriff's office was in your office. Like, what is going
Yes.
on?
Yes. So unfortunately, South Florida is the title fraud capital of the world.
Mhm.
It's the capital of the world because criminals, and that's what they are, they walk into the recording divisions for every single county. They file fake deeds on people's properties, and they take those deeds and they extort people for money or mortgage rent or sell the property. They do it all the time. And the reason it's so easy for them is the recording division for every county has a ministerial duty. They have to accept whatever documents are filed with them. So you have these criminals, they walk in, they file a fake deed, and they do something nefarious with it. So the first thing we wanted to do was give the people of Broward County the opportunity to fight the fraud before the fraud occurs. And so 2 years ago, we came up with a great program in-house. We spend no taxpayer dollars developing it, and it's free to the public, and it's called Owner Alert. And if any resident of Broward County that hasn't signed up, please do so. And here's how you can do it. You can go to our website at bcpa.net. You type in your name, and you type in your parcel ID number, which you can easily grab from our website, and your email address. And if we have your email address on file, you're automatically verified. If we don't, you have to upload your Florida driver's license or Florida ID. If you don't have that, you have to upload a utility bill or something proving ownership. And then if any document, legitimate or not, is filed changing ownership, you'll be notified instantaneously by email so you can make sure your property is not stolen from you, that is not mortgaged, and that your title doesn't get clouded. And we've had about 209,000 property owners sign up so far, and you can sign up to get an email. And also, about 2 months ago, we rolled out a text message component where anybody can sign up to get a text message. That's the quickest way of getting. We've had about 70,000 property owners sign up that way. And there are people in Broward County that may not have access to email, may not want a text message. They can get a hard copy in the mail if they want that as well. And what happened was about 2 years ago, when I rolled this out, I started getting calls from residents and emails saying, Marty, I got an alert from your office. Your owner alert notified me that a title was changed in my property, but I didn't do it. And then I got more and more and more. And I realized how big of a deal it was. So I wanted to do something a little bit different that is not really in the realm of property appraisers. I wanted to work with law enforcement, build criminal cases, and hold the people accountable who are doing this. And so I went to the Department of Revenue. And the Florida Department of Revenue governs property appraisers. And I said, I want to work with law enforcement and put these people in jail. And they said, well, Marty, you're a property appraiser. You determine the value of properties and give exemptions. You're not law enforcement. So we got a little bit of heartburn, but we know this is a big deal in South Florida. And so we'll make you the guinea pig for the rest of the state. I go, great. So then I went to the county commission and I explained to them what I wanted to do. And they said, Marty, we think it's a great idea. We'll fund your positions for your crimes against property team that you're creating. So then I went to see my friend who I think is doing a fantastic job, Sheriff Tony. And I go, Sheriff Tony, this is what's happening to the people of our county. I would love to work together to build criminal cases and put people in jail. And he goes, Marty, not only will we enter into an interlocal agreement to work together, but I'm going to assign 2 sheriff detectives to work solely for your office, to be in your office, to be housed within your office, so you can actually do the work of holding these people accountable. I then went to our state attorney, Harold Pryor, who's also a great friend doing a great job. And I go, Harold, the sheriff and I, we're working together to help bring these people to justice. If we bring you cases where people have stolen other people's homes, would you consider prosecuting them? And he said, Marty, not only will we enter into an interlocal agreement to work together, but I'm going to assign an assistant state attorney to work with your office to prosecute the people that are doing this. And that's how our crimes against property team was born. And so now it consists of our director, who at one point was second in command of the sheriff's office. We have 4 employees of our office who are former law enforcement with significant investigatory experience. We have 2 sheriff's detectives, a Fort Lauderdale detective, and a Town of Davie Reserve detective and support staff. And what we do is we work with law enforcement, and we've been very successful in holding people accountable. So far, just over the past year, we've had almost 20 arrests. I think we're at 18 arrests right now. We have a number of open warrants. We've had a number of convictions. We've been able to stop the fraudulent sale of millions upon millions of dollars of properties, and we've been able to recover millions of dollars of properties that were stolen and had those returned to the victims. And let me just give you 3 quick examples, if it's okay, Melissa, just to show the people.
Absolutely. We love it. We love the information. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. There are a lot of examples I can give. And actually, next week, the sheriff and I are actually going to be together at a press conference talking about a new one. So I can't really talk about that one just yet. But there are 3 examples I'd like to give that really show how smart the people are that do this. And there are a few common denominators about the people that do this. The first is they're really smart. And they're the type of people that if they did something legitimate in their life, they'd be very successful business people. Instead, they make their money by defrauding the public. The other thing is they tend to pick on everybody, but they love to pick on our most vulnerable people. They pick on seniors. They pick on low-income people. They're so smart that they pick on whoever they think they can pick on where they can best get away with it. And 3 examples just to show you how smart they are, where they try to defraud people out of their property. One was a married couple. You had 2 wives. One of the wives worked for one of our hospital districts. The other wife worked in the real estate industry. The wife that worked in the hospital district would find out what people would pass on. She would then take their personal information, including their social security numbers and all other identifying information that was confidential, and give it to her wife in the real estate industry, who would find that they had property in Broward County and heirs here. If they had property and no heirs, they'd file fake deeds on the properties. They would sell the properties on Zillow, rent the properties, mortgage the properties. They profited in the amount of millions of dollars. But fortunately, they were arrested, found guilty, and something I'm very happy about. Even though they're a married couple, they're spending their time in different prisons.
Wow.
Another example. It is very happy about that. And actually, the way that we caught them is we actually pulled their homestead exemption, and they called up and they said, "Hey, you pulled our homestead exemption." And we said, "Oh, come on in, let's fix it." They came in, and when they did that, BSO like swarmed and arrested them. So that's how we got them in the office. The next story that I wanted to quickly talk about involves a man that hasn't yet been convicted, but he's been arrested, and I believe he will be convicted. And I think he's going to spend a long time in prison for what he tried to do, allegedly tried to do.
Yes.
There was a man, not from Broward, but from Miami-Dade County, and he found out that there was a senior that was sick, that was bedridden, that owned a 5-acre parcel in Southwest Ranches, all free and clear. And what he did was he filed a fake corporation with Tallahassee, and he made the officer and director of that corporation the sick man. He then filed a fake deed on the property saying the corporation owned the property, and he then made a fake ID saying he was that sick man. He then walked into a small business in the city of Sunrise, a mortgage company, and said, "You know what? I've fallen in some hard times, made some bad financial decisions, but I got this one thing, a 5-acre parcel in Southwest Ranches, free and clear. Can I please have a $500,000 mortgage?" And the mortgage company said, "Absolutely, we'll give it to you." And this is where they really should have realized that something was fishy. The closing on a 5-acre parcel in Southwest Ranches for a $500,000 took place at a Burger King in Hialeah. Oh. So they go to the Burger King in Hialeah, and you got the bad guy trying to get the money. You got the mortgage company not doing their due diligence, but they're innocent and they're about to be out a lot of money. And you got the smartest person in the room, the notary. And the notary's looking at this thinking, this is very bizarre. So she asked for his thumbprint, which he gave. She then contacted our Crimes Against Property team. We contacted the Town of Davie Police Department because they police Southwest Ranches, and the U.S. Secret Service because they handle a lot of the identity theft cases in America. And fortunately, the man was arrested. Unfortunately, he was given the full $500,000 mortgage, spent about $80,000. We recovered $420,000. One other example, because it happened very recently, but it was a very big deal. There was a number of people, and I haven't verified this, but I have heard that they came up with this scheme in jail together. So there's a number of people that, and I believe it, you know, and 3 of them have been arrested. Many more, I believe, will be arrested very, very soon. And what they did was they figured out how to use the court system to steal people's properties. And so you had the ringleaders, and the ringleaders would file they would file lawsuits in circuit court, basically quiet title action, saying that this senior or this person or this bank no longer wants their property. And then the return of service would go to the guy's buddy who was in a mobile home in Hillsborough County. And he would do one of 2 things. Either he wouldn't file anything, and then they would go in and get a default judgment, or he would file an answer and say, "Oh yeah, I represent that senior. I represent that bank, that person. They no longer want the property. Put in this other guy's name or his company's name." And they stole right about, I believe, at least 20 properties that we found so far. We tend to find more every single week. 3 of them have been arrested. More, I believe, will be arrested. And I'm very happy about that. But I've learned a couple things from that particular arrest, because I learned that sometimes there are lots of victims, even more than the property owner. In one of those situations, in one of the homes they stole, they actually moved in a whole bunch of their buddies to this property. And what I learned was not only is the actual owner of the property the victim, but the community can also be a victim, because one of those individuals allegedly went out of the home about 3 or 4 in the morning one day, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, went to a neighbor's home, and he tried every single door to try to get in until he found one where he was able to get in. He then walked up to the bed of the husband and the wife. The wife fortunately woke up, started screaming, "There's somebody in the room," and the dog chased him out. He was then arrested for burglary, given an ankle monitor, and went right back to the stolen home. We recently worked with the City of Fall River Police Department to remove the people from the house. And then I learned something new when they were removed. I learned not only is the owner of the property a victim and the community can be a victim, but the people that are moving into these properties can also be victims too, because they're living in terrible conditions. They're living with no running water, no utilities, no electricity. And one of the people actually removed from that home was just a very small child. And so there is a lot of people that can be victimized when somebody steals a property. And I like to talk about it because I hope everybody here signs up for our owner alert program. It's your first line of
Yeah.
defense. And the other reason it is, and the other reason I like to talk about it, I want everybody out there to know that's thinking about doing this, that they are not welcome in Broward County. And if they do it, we're going to work exceptionally hard to make sure that they are held accountable and serve time in prison. And
Well, Marty,
that's my long-winded
listen,
answer.
I want to thank you for your efforts in making that happen,
Thank
because I
you.
don't know if this is happening in any other county except for Broward
Everywhere.
County, but
Mhm.
that ability to receive notification that this is happening is going to prevent
Thank you.
so many people from falling victim. So, tell us one more
Thank you.
time how they can
Of
go on the
course.
website and be able to register for
Sure.
this.
Absolutely. And actually, Melissa, if this is happening in every county where people are stealing properties, for example, the two wives that I spoke about, the married couple, when we looked at the properties they stole, we also were able to find that they stole properties all throughout the state of Florida. So it's happening everywhere. There's even a bill in
Happening everywhere,
Congress.
but does
Uh,
everybody have what you put into place as far as this
so,
great program to notify people?
so So I'll tell you what's great. We're the only one so far with a crimes against property team where we hold people accountable. But our owner alert program has been so successful that the legislature last year actually passed a law requiring all other counties to also adopt an owner
Oh,
alert
that's
program as
amazing.
well.
That's
So
amazing.
there is a number. A part of it was for the work that we've done, but also other parts where this has been the legislature fortunately was made aware about how big of a deal this was everywhere. And other clerks of courts and property appraisers wanted the ability to be able to have a program like this as well. And what we've been doing actually in our office is we already have the blueprint. And so we don't want anybody to spend any money. So we've actually been working with other governmental agencies, other counties, to help them set up a program so they can just kind of just have it up and running,
Awesome.
which is great. And if
Mhm.
anybody in Broward wants to sign up, just all they have to do is go to our website at bcpa.net. And we have a second website too, which is web.bcpa.net. That's actually a very easy one with your phone. If they go to either one of those websites, they just click on a button right there. It says owner alert. And then what they can do is they type in their name, they type in their parcel ID number, which you can easily grab from the website, and you type in your email address. And then if we have your email on file, you're automatically verified. If not, they have to upload a Florida driver's license or Florida ID. If they don't have that, they have to upload a utility bill or something proving ownership, and then that'll actually register them so they can be protected. Also, we have lots of events all throughout the county. We have what's called our mobile exemption education team. For me, I believe it's difficult for people to get to downtown Fort Lauderdale on a weekday during working hours. So we try to take our office to the public. And I think this year we'll go to about 1,000 events, and people bring their computers with them, and they can actually sign people up on the spot for exemptions. They can look at their property and owner alert. We sign up a lot of people that way. So there are a number of ways that people can do it. And I just hope everybody takes advantage of it.
That's amazing. Thank you for that information, Marty. Can you talk a little bit about
Thank you.
where does the taxes go? What does it go
Mhm.
to fund? Shed a
Sure.
little bit of light on that for us.
Sure, that's such a great question. So Broward County is enormous. I mean, we are a big place. The last I looked, I think we're the 16th largest county in the entire nation. Again, we're bigger than 13 states, the District of Columbia, and all U.S. territories except Puerto Rico. We have the sixth largest school district in the entire country, the Broward County School District, and our sheriff's office, I think, is the largest sheriff's office in the whole country. That's how big we are to put in perspective. And so people's property taxes go to fund all of that. It funds the building of roads and bridges. It funds the school system for the most part. It funds mass transit. Basically, when you walk outside and you look at everything, when you stop at a stoplight, all of that is funded with your tax dollars. And right now, there are lots of taxing authorities. So the county, when you look at your tax bill, you'll see all the taxing authorities you pay taxes to. One, of course, is the county commission, and they're right now determining their tax rate. And what you can do is you'll note in the trim notice, it's going to show where the dates and times they have their budget hearings. If you think their tax rate's good, let them know. If you're concerned, let them know as well. The city you live in is the same thing. They're about to have their budget hearings. They're going to discuss their tax rate because they're going to discuss the amount of money that they need and for their budget so they can operate on a municipal level. And then also the school board, of course, is they're exceptionally important. I actually think that's the most important place where our tax dollars go to because they're educating our young minds. That's actually the largest portion of your tax bill. It's going there to fund their classrooms, teachers, everything you could think of. And actually, this year, I'm not sure if people have noticed this. There's an increase to their school board tax portion of their tax bill, and the reason being is the last election, the people of Broward County, by a 57% margin, voted to allow them to have a full mill. So they basically increased taxes to a full mill to provide to go to teacher salaries and to make our schools safer overall. And so you will notice that as you look at your trim notice, there's going to be an increase in the school portion of that. That's based on that voter referendum. But just to make a long story short, that's how the sheriff's office is funded, the proctor's office, the supervisor of elections, just about all the services that you all utilize, that is government in Broward County, that's funded by your tax dollars.
Hopefully that makes you guys feel better out there for paying those
Oh, yeah.
taxes,
Yeah,
because it does fund so much of what we use on a daily basis, our children's
it
education,
does.
and so much more. Okay, so as
Absolutely.
we begin to kind of wind down here, Marty, can you just share with us some commonly asked questions? Maybe what's the top
Sure.
question that you get,
Mhm.
or concern that you get on a
Mhm.
daily basis, at Broward
Sure.
County Property Appraiser's Office?
It's true. So it all depends. But I can definitely give you one that's, of course, right now is people's main concern. But before that, what I've learned about property is every property is different. What may work for one may not work for another, and it's very unique. So I always tell everybody on any issue that you have, if you have any concerns about changing your deed, you may not know what's going to happen to your property taxes if you do that. If you're going to add somebody to your deed, if you're going to move, if you're concerned about your value, whatever it is, give us a call. I'm an elected official, and the people in our office are all public servants. All we want to do is be able to help you and give you information so you can make the best decision for you and your family. So definitely call me, email me. But I will say this right now, of course, the biggest issue, and we kind of addressed it before, but it's just so important because it's always heartbreaking when it happens. The biggest issue that is coming up right now is really first time homeowners in Florida, whether it's their first home or people just moving to Florida. And again, they didn't know what was going to happen to their property taxes when it got reset, because when they bought their property, let's say last year, they got the November tax bill. They were happy as punch. Now they see what's happening to their taxes. And very, very soon, they're going to be getting a letter from their mortgage company saying their escrow is very, very short. And, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do. But that is the biggest issue. But I do tell everybody this. There are times where we can help because, like I said before, there are things we don't know about your property. Maybe you overpaid for your property when you bought it. Maybe you bought all the furniture in your property. There was even a situation where there was a father who desperately wanted to live next to his daughter. And so he way overpaid for the property that he's in. So we were able to disqualify that as a sale and bring it down. And that's why I said what may work for one may not work for another. So please, anybody out there, call me, email me. We can go through your property by September 18th this year. We may be able to help you. If we can, we'll bring down your value, which could bring down your taxes. We want to do that. If we can't, we'll let you know in a detailed explanation and also give you other options where you could file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board for $15. That actually allows us to work on it after September 18th and also gives you the opportunity to possibly say that our office was wrong in its assessment. I mean, there's lots of avenues for people to have. But I guess the most important things, I know I'm going on and on, but please call me, email me. It's just so important. I want to help you. I want to work with you.
Yes, thank you so much. We want to thank Marty. Thank you, Marty, for being
Thank you.
so generous with your time today to speak with us.
Thank
And
you.
you will see on the banner below if you have any questions, like Marty Kiar is saying, you can feel free to make a note of the number below to contact the Broward County Appraiser's Office. Marty, any final words?
I just want to thank you, Melissa. You are fantastic.
Oh,
I really enjoyed meeting you. Oh my gosh, must have been about a year now that I met you. You're just so wonderful. And again, thanks for spending time with my dad. I thought that was so nice when you were talking to him. But I just want to
you
thank you
guys
for
are
having
great
me on.
people.
As I said, oh, thank you. I just wanted to just to thank you again because at the end of the day, there's so much that our office can do to help people. And sometimes it's very difficult to reach, you can't reach everybody. And when you invite me on and other people invite me on, it just gives me the opportunity to talk to the public and to reach people I can't reach on my own. And so thank you so much. I know that tomorrow or maybe later on, somebody's going to call me, they're going to email me, I'm going to get to help them. And the only reason I'm going to have been able to do that is because you decided to take the time out of your busy schedule to have me on. So thank you so, so very much. You're awesome.
I appreciate that, Marty. And thank you all for being a part of the audience of Real Talk with Melissa Miller. Please stay tuned right here on Facebook for our announcement for the next episode, where we'll be having some more real talk with you. And again, thank you, Marty, and hope you all have an amazing day. Signing out.
Bye, everybody.